I built my son a $200,000 castle with my bare hands and broken bank account. Then he locked me out of Christmas dinner because I didn't fit the atmosphere. One phone call later, their dream house became a foreclosure nightmare. My story will tell you something about boundaries that took me 60 years to learn. I'm a maintenance supervisor. Been working with my hands for 35 years. After my wife Maria passed, every spare dollar went to my son Ethan and his family. I thought that's what good fathers do. I thought love meant sacrifice. I was wrong about a lot of things, but I was right about one thing. I kept every receipt. Christmas had always been bittersweet after Maria died. But last year it wasn't bittersweet. It was brutal. Ethan didn't even call me about Christmas. Didn't have the courage for a conversation. He sent a text about seating being complicated at Sloane's parents' house. Said we'd celebrate the weekend after. Seating complicated. I stared at those words while my coffee went cold, sitting in my tiny kitchen that hadn't been updated in 15 years. You know why it wasn't updated? Because every spare dollars, every single one, went to them. Let me paint you the real picture of what complicated actually meant. That house Ethan called his dream home, I didn't just help buy it. I was that house. Every brick was my overtime. Every window was my sacrifice. Every perfectly manicured inch was built on the bones of my retirement fund. The math is brutal, and I've got the bank statements to prove it. $2,300 disappeared from my account every single month for 5 years. $138,000 in mortgage payments alone. Plus the $40,000 down payment I refinanced my own house to give them. Plus maxed out credit cards for Sloane's emergencies. Plus a second mortgage when Ethan lost his job for 3 months. Total damage to my life? Over $200,000. While I ate ramen noodles and drove a pickup truck held together with duct tape and prayer, they lived in luxury that I was paying for. And now I wasn't sophisticated enough for their Christmas table. I drove to their house that evening. Had to see my sis' face when I asked him why. Their Christmas tree sparkled like something from a magazine. Designer stockings hung in perfect alignment. Ethan, Sloane, little Ava. Notice what's missing? That's right. No stocking for the man funding their fairy tale. I sat on their $4,000 leather couch. Yes, the couch that came out of my savings, and suggested bringing my famous roast lamb for Christmas dinner. Ethan couldn't even look at it. Dear me, when he delivered the killing blow, I wouldn't be welcome. His in-laws preferred I wasn't there. They had standards, traditions, a certain atmosphere. I asked him point blank where I should spend Christmas then. He told me maybe Aunt Rosa's house, or we'd do something the weekend after, like I was a dentist appointment that could be rescheduled. The next morning, my phone rang, Sloane's name on the screen. This woman, who I'd financially supported for 5 years, asked me to pick up her parents from the airport. Heavy luggage, she said, as if I was their personal driver. Yesterday, I wasn't good enough to breathe the same air at Christmas dinner. Today, I was good enough to be their servant. When I reminded her I'd been uninvited, she got nasty, really nasty. She explained that her parents expected sophisticated conversation and cultured company, not my working class stories, not my background, not my existence. But then she crossed the line that ended everything. She brought up my late wife, Maria, said Maria had known her place better than I did, called her classy because she'd stayed quiet about being just a house cleaner who got lucky. That was the line she should never have crossed. I hung up on her, walked to my desk, pulled out a manila folder I'd been avoiding for months, bank statements, mortgage papers, a 5-year financial autopsy of my demolished future. $2,300 every first of the month for 60 consecutive months. While I ate generic cereal and wore shoes with holes, $138,000 had vanished into their perfect suburban dream. My wife's life insurance money, my retirement fund, college savings for grandchildren I was apparently too embarrassing to see. I picked up the phone and called my bank, told them I needed to cancel a recurring transfer. The representative found the payment, $2,300 monthly, to Wells Fargo, asked when it should be effective. I looked around my outdated kitchen, the leaky window I couldn't fix, the flickering light I lived with, the cracked linoleum that screamed poverty while they lived in luxury. I told them immediately. For the first time in 5 years, saying no felt like freedom. That Christmas Eve, while Ethan and Sloan hosted their precious in-laws in the house I built, I sat by my fireplace with a glass of 18-year-old whiskey, the bottle I'd been saving for a special occasion. You know what's special, watching 5 years of bank statements burn. Page by page, I fed my sacrifice to the flames, each monthly transfer turning to ash, each canceled dream curling into smoke. My phone buzzed constantly, Ethan's name lighting up the screen. For the first time in years, I didn't answer. I just watched my financial martyrdom burn and felt something I'd forgotten existed. Peace. January passed, February crawled by. Then March arrived with a beautiful piece of mail, a notice of default, 3 months overdue, foreclosure proceedings to begin. The castle I'd built was crumbling, and the entitled royalty insat were about to learn what happens when you bite the hand that literally feeds you. My phone became a war zone. Unknown numbers calling constantly, Sloan leaving increasingly desperate voicemails, anger transforming into panic as reality set in. Even her precious parents called about family responsibility. I blocked every single number. For years, I had been the responsibility, the emergency fund, the safety net. Now they could learn what it felt like to fall. 3 months later, 3 quiet knocks came at my door. Ethan stood on my porch looking like he'd aged a decade in 90 days. Wrinkled suit, hollow eyes, trembling hands. He walked into my house, my house, which I had finally started improving with my own money and actually complimented the place. I told him the truth. This is what happens when you spend money on yourself instead of people who don't respect you. He apologized for Christmas, for the in-laws, for not defending me, for everything. Then came the desperate plea they were drowning, going to lose the house. He didn't know how to fix it. I asked him a simple question. Did he know how much I'd sent them over 5 years? He whispered that Sloan had calculated over 200,000. I corrected him with surgical precision. 138,000 in mortgage payments alone, plus down payment, plus credit cards, plus everything else. It cost me everything, my retirement, his mother's life insurance, the future I'd never get back. And after all that sacrifice, his wife told me I didn't fit the atmosphere of the family dinner I was literally paying for. He buried his face in his hands, finally understanding the magnitude of what they destroyed. When he asked what happens next, I laid out the terms. I told him I'd forgiven him months ago, but forgiveness doesn't mean amnesia. If he wanted a relationship with me, he'd build it from scratch, with respect, with boundaries, without her parents deciding where I belong. When he asked about the house, I was clear. It wasn't my problem anymore. He's a grown man. Get a job that covers the bills. Sell and downsize. Live within your means. Figure it out like adults do. For the first time in that conversation, Ethan sat up straighter. The begging stopped. Something flickered in his eyes that I hadn't seen in years. Self-respect. Today, I sit on my back porch with my evening whiskey, watching trees bud in my own backyard. For the first time in 5 years, I'm not calculating which bills I can't pay because of someone else's mortgage. Here's what I learned. Family isn't the people who use your love as a credit card. Family is the people who save you a chair at their table, not because they need your money, but because they need you. The most powerful word in the English language isn't yes, it's no. The smartest revenge leaves no scars, only satisfaction. What would you have done? Was I too harsh, or did they get what they deserved? Drop your thoughts below, and if this story helped you think about your own boundaries, hit that subscribe button. Because sometimes the people who claim to love us most are the ones taking advantage of us worst.